Fuck. What's up? We got one dude in here. How's it going? What are you up to? Hopefully you're having a good day. I don't know who this one guy. There's always one guy right when the stream starts. He's just permanently in here. Or do they count me in the stream? What's up? What's up? How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Is everybody doing good? You guys doing good or what? What's the deal? You guys? Oh yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing great. Okay, so I'm just going to do I'm going to do some, we're going to cover some events for this week. We're going to track some progress. So we're just doing a historical vlog here. I've been getting less heat about my my little video log thing here. So I'm able to pick it back up a little bit. I'm not really getting as much heat. It was getting pretty spicy there for a minute. Oh yeah, Dark, congrats, bro. No, go serve the fucking slave master. Okay, now so August 2020, beginning of August, first half of August, right? So this week, so interesting things. So first of all, I guess I should say, somebody's been shooting at helicopters in Virginia. And they're hitting them. So somebody's starting the boog. It's in Virginia, so it might be the fucking feds themselves shooting their own fucking helicopters. Who knows? But that is what's going on. Yeah, you're right, Dark. You're right, my friend. We're in a poop squad and we're uniting here, is what one viewer says. I do work in I'm a sanitation engineer. Yeah, no, somebody shooting fucking aircraft in Virginia. They hit one of them, they injured I don't know if they wounded somebody or if they like got spalled or what, but they're fucking impacting aircraft in Virginia. All right, so that's one little escalation. Could be literally anything. It could be something that's just pissed off and shooting. It could be a false flag. Who the fuck knows? All right, that's the first event. It's probably, it kind of gives you, so if you think about people shooting helicopters in the sky, it gives you an idea of how it's so funny because it's not funny really. The whole situation about all this is that the entire power of tyranny is the people. People are the power of tyranny, right? You get one guy, let's say this was organic, this situation in Virginia. You get one guy shooting aircraft, it fucking changes everything. They have to change like flight patterns and shit like this. It could be some guy with a fucking Mosin outside shooting at helicopters. It changes everything. You can imagine how ridiculous it'll get in full-scale conflict. Like one guy shooting a bullet at a helicopter really fucks shit up and rustles people's jimmies. Well, there's a lot more effective things than that. Anyway. That is not the way, like the violence and conflict is a complete misunderstanding of people. Now it is inevitable. Violence and conflict is inevitable because that is the method that has been drilled into everyone's brains. It's primordial. But the reality is that the way that things are won is through consensus of minds, and so whoever has that wins. period. And it doesn't matter if the things that you consent on are real or fake, but that is what ultimately wins us, not your violence. Kind of a deep topic. Won't go into it any deeper than that. But something interesting to note: that somebody's shooting at helicopters in Virginia. Second interesting thing: we got Sheriff Billy. I can't remember what his name is. I just remember it's Billy, and I was like, "Hey, Sheriff Billy Badass in Florida, telling the mask directive ordinance to go fuck themselves, ordering all deputies, other than responding to known people that are believed to be, in reaction to COVID-19, like they're diagnosed or whatever, going to hospitals and shit. Other than that, he banned all of his department from wearing masks. He banned visitors and department staff, sheriff's deputies from wearing masks. He's pretty much exactly what everybody should be doing, because that would be logical. Unfortunately, where I'm at, I see people coming in from the highway like voluntarily wearing masks. Like there is no fucking ordinance here, and they're just wearing it anyway. And they're looking around at everybody else not wearing masks, who are regular people, but don't have time for this nonsense. And they're like looking around for I don't know what, for a pat on the back or something. It's not gonna happen. Anyway, sheriffs doing exactly what sheriffs are supposed to do, which is to represent their constituency in their best interests. And obviously, COVID-19 is a government-released virus. Everybody involved in both the production of COVID-19 and the MSM and DHHS executive administration covering of it, in terms of stimulating the public into reaction, they have there's a lot of roots there to be traced in the organizations involved. And particularly, there's a really interesting article on Dark Winter. I recommend you look up Dark Winter and its connection to staff at DHHS, the current executives at DHHS who are part of Dark Winter, which is a simulation pandemic program started in the earlier in the 2000s. You also have World Health Organization and things like that posturing to change over to pandemic in 2018. Very, people just aren't there. People are not this intelligent, despite what you think. I know that you think that like the statists tend to believe that the government is like a magic 8-ball, and that they're perfect. And the reality is that anybody who's worked, it's like there's this cloud fairy tale that the government is like this efficient machine that's perfect. Yet everybody who works in the government can't find where that department is. Like everybody that works in government is just like constantly bumblefucking through their day, trying to write as many SOPs as they possibly can to somehow attain this supposed perfection that exists somewhere in the government bureaucracy, infinite progression that has been ongoing for human civilization. And we haven't found it yet. We'll keep checking. We'll keep looking under the rug and in the cracks and stuff. Maybe we'll find it. But people are not smart enough to set up this fucking. It's just ridiculous. I don't even want to placate to the idea. Like, if you're watching this and you think COVID-19 is legit, like, you're in fucking big trouble. I'm gonna tell you that right now, because you're a retard. All right. But it is interesting that the sheriff in Florida is flat out here the interesting thing to me about COVID-19 is so you have two elements to the national and international COVID-19 axis of dialectic here. You have the I'm a slave and I do exactly what the slaves say, what the slave masters say, and then you have the I'm not a slave, I'm a slave, and so I do the opposite of what the slave masters say, right? And then one side of that is more correct than the others, but it's not for like the correct reasons, right? You should be, if you feel like you need to deny the COVID-19 directives, you should do it because you see that it's true, not because the media uh, tells you, right? Now, all the hands on deck of the media can't get on the same page because that's not how dialectic works. So they have to work against. So you have the executive administration, particularly under Trump, appearing like they are completely against COVID-19 and masks and shit. Yet they do a dramatic, oh, okay, we're wearing masks now. It's just the whole thing is a show. You guys, it's all a show. They think they've got your brain so studied that they can, and they're pretty much right, most for the most part. Not for everybody, but they've got humanity pegged pretty good in terms of like understanding when they're gonna have to go to the bathroom during the day. They can pretty much guess the time, and they know what'll get you to fucking accept the control paradigm. And so that's what all this mass shit is about. It's really interesting in the sheriff's remarks. Sheriff Billy out of I can't remember what county it is. It's in Florida. It's a Florida sheriff. But he basically says, for every expert that I find that says that recommends wearing a mask, I can find another expert that recommends not to. And it's this is like the most it's almost picture perfect in explaining the current situation. You have he wants to say something else, he can't say whatever. I don't know what the sheriff thinks because he didn't say it, but I can tell you that he doesn't think what he's saying, right? And he's placating to the general public by giving like a broad and appealing. What he's doing is he's appealing to the state apparatus, to the infinite progression apparatus that is hegemony. That's what he's appealing to when he's saying that. So he's like referencing experts and stating that because there's an expert that says that you should wear a mask, and there is another expert that says that you shouldn't wear a mask, that cancels things out mathematically. Well, that sets you up for a game of like all you have to do is overcome the people that are saying no and saying yes, which is exactly what consensus is. Synthesized consensus as a model, and that's exactly the technique that this entire thing is going by. So he's playing a losing game there logically. What he should have done is come out and said exactly what the fuck he thought, which I can't speak for him, but what he should have said was something like, there is a world government that is attempting to play a big pull your pants down game on the United States, and we're a bunch of pussies. And I don't know how this is going to shake out or if I'm going to be on top, but I'm going to draw a line in the sand with my balls. And here it is. I'm the sheriff. Vote for me next election. That's what he should have said. He didn't say that. But he was probably thinking something approximately along those lines, or guessing it. He's probably like guessing. He's like, but I'm not sure. No, you're right, Sheriff. We are going to the big party here pretty soon. It's just so silly. The whole thing's so silly. The placation and like the PC stuff, it's just like I just don't, I can't, I mean, I know, I understand it. I shouldn't say that I don't understand it, because I do. It's just not, it's not decent. Like, the public isn't decent anymore, so there's no point in pretending, there's no point in placating to this false decency that they supposedly have. They don't have decency. It's an incredibly immoral hegemony right now. Incredibly immoral. They don't even pretend to uphold reciprocal ethics or like universal ethic. It's completely it's, no matter where you look, it's completely lopsided, one-sided, contradictory, contronymic, and mentally insane. And so there's no reason to placate to it at all. and the quicker that we start pointing it out as a society, which will come inevitably, it's either going to come in the form of you intellectually accepting reality and acknowledging it in a communicative way, which would be the human thing to do, or you can wait until it manifests into its physicality, which is just us all fucking shooting each other, which is exactly where we're going. But it might be, I mean, I'm not saying that you could avoid it. It would just be the prudent, it'd just be the responsible thing to do, right? Like, use words before you use bullets, right? If not, I'm not talking about placating to your enemy. I'm talking about like waking people up, giving people more chance to think, more time to consider what's going on, right? Getting early head start, right? It's the thing to do. And you stop being scared, start voicing your voice. Okay, what else we got? Really interesting thing. So I have started to notice, in a big way, religious Jew communities, people that are associated with religious Jew communities. Most of them are they're typically like Orthodox or sects of Orthodox, or yeah, I would define it, just for simplicity, I'd say Orthodox. They are beginning to dump on that. Now it's got two forms. You've got people that are dumping on the Erev Rav, and they're not saying that they're Erev Rav because the general public's too dumb to understand what that is, so they're not even going to try to explain. And then you have another sect that's just like tying it up into Zionism, because Zionism is essentially, Zionism, like, all Zionists are Erev Rav, but like in the political sense, I mean. But all Erev Rav aren't Zionists, right? So if that makes sense. But there's a lot of people dumping on Zionists, a lot of Jews. So I saw this morning somebody that doesn't know me, doesn't know anything, shows me Facebook posts and shit. I don't know why, because I guess people are still using Facebook. Anyway, they showed me this Facebook post, and it was a sponsored ad on Facebook, which is very interesting. So the sponsored ad on Facebook was a Jew sponsoring an ad that was dumping on what's his name? Vabachinsky, the one of the original founding fathers of Zionism. Is that correct? Vladimir, is it Babachinsky? I can't remember. Whatever the guy's name is, he's a founding father of Zionism. There's a sponsored Facebook advertisement, basically tailored to non-Jews, explaining how the guy's, explaining how he's like anti-Semitic, basically. He uses the term anti-Semitic. The reason he's using the term anti-Semitic is because that's what, we dumb people have been like chewing on for a long time. And the word anti-Semitic is practically meaningless. We've already discussed this a lot before. It's practically meaningless. It's definitely a subversive term introduced by the people who ironically created the what is known as the Holocaust. But it's interesting to see that, and I've seen it in a lot of places unrelated. I'm not even looking for it. It's somehow manifesting itself to show it in different ways, and I'm like inventorying it as I see it, and like acknowledging it, seeing it happen, and it's very interesting. Like I guess that I don't know, maybe there's like a brain cloud here. So let's see what else. What other kind of shit is going on? A really interesting thing. Trump has continued to address the press as the enemy of liberty, the enemy of the American public, and being absolutely and totally corrupt. And the other thing that has been developing over the last I'd say 3 weeks in a heavy fashion, are people beginning to talk about corruption as like a systemic problem, not like a. Now they're still using like bumper sticker terminology, like they're trying to fucking sell like couches or something, like a door-to-door couch salesman or something. But um, and that's just because we're so brainwashed that that's our tool that we've come up with, is like selling things to everyone. The most effective thing that you can do is to tap into your heart and speak from it live in all of your imperfection and vulnerability, and to if you say something that you didn't mean, then correct yourself immediately as soon as you catch it, and accept your error, and move on to the point. Because if the point has a solid foundation in what you're trying to communicate, then by doing so, you're just going to build up and strengthen your communication at that point, and people will recognize it, because everyone on the planet is perceiving the same thing through their own individual angle and bias. And by you presenting things clearly without manipulative intent, and just trying to say like what you see, people will respond to it. And so with Trump, and with people coming out and talking about corruption and shit, it's a little bit different for the general public. The general public, you have a lot of blog articles of people in a personal way expressing their frustration and discontent with the current status of, like, whether they refer to it as like international oligarchs, whether they refer to it as deep state, all of which are misnomers, and they underqualify the current threat, because the reality is that, like, who you guys are up against, who is attacking the entire world and putting it under a very tight what's going to go into like a global tyranny, is much stronger and much more capable than we think. And the reason that they're so strong and capable is because we are so dumb, and we are the entire fuel and weapon. I'm talking about humanity, human people. We are the entire fuel and weapon of that force. And until people can understand that, they're going to have. It's kind of like trying to fight a fucking, like a mirror, like fight a mirror. That's what it's like, right? The until you realize that it's a mirror, and you're like, oh, I can just break this motherfucker or walk away. The frustration in the public is based in genuine terms, but they're miscalculating the severity of the situation and how long term this is going to be. This isn't some, like, we're going to go to Baghdad and punch it and pull out or something, or we're going to go invade Germany or something like that. This is something that's embedded amongst everyone and into the resources that everyone uses, and it's impossible to shake loose. It's impossible to pull it out. It's like a fucking heartworm is like what we've got, right? And failing to identify this and understand this really opens pockets of people up, large pockets of people up, to being manipulated by changing the political rhetoric and guiding them into action by suggesting that, like, we have to do something, and that thing is violence, and here's the people that we want to kill so that we can, establish world government. Shooting star. And that threat makes people vulnerable. So hopefully things will begin to open up for the eyes of humanity. Will be open for them, because they're probably not going to do it themselves. Hopefully they'll get some assistance in opening up their sight and becoming at least paranoid enough to not accept whatever dish is just handed out in front of them by an anonymous hand of what to eat. And that will give us the best head start that we can in really dealing with this the way that will be necessary. President Trump's remarks when he is discussing the corruption of the MSM and how the MSM is the enemy of the people. He is so on one hand, like if you're unfamiliar with these videos, if you're a viewer watching this, you just stumbled on this video. Obviously, Trump is correct in the sterile and basic sense of what he's saying. Obviously, the MSM is entirely, a propaganda machine, an investment that has no relationship to any constituency except for the rulers of the United States, and that much is clear. The thing that is dishonest about Trump is that he's on that same side, number one, and number two, you should be able to deduce that based off of logic. So if the MSM, so here's what we're going to do for logic, right? We're going to analyze this. So if the MSM, so let's say that you're a major Trump supporter. If the MSM is the enemy of the United States citizenry, and if you accept that, and a lot of people do, and I don't think it's necessarily like a false paradigm division of like right, left, Democrat, Republican, which doesn't exist, but I mean, it exists the same way that like, monsters exist under the bed of children. If we deduce and accept that what he's saying at its basis is in fact true, that they are the enemy of free people, and they don't have the interest of the American citizenry at heart at any time, then we have to look at, okay, well, who are we talking about? A vague MSM here that has no identity, or are we talking about specific entities? Well, they would say CNN. Well, they would say New York Times. They would say, Washington Post, yada, yada, yada. Okay, well, if those aren't just like abstract, floaty cloud concepts that don't actually have faces to them, then that means that those are real companies with employees and people, and they have a, like some kind of charter and a business record to the beginning of whenever they become an entity. And they do. That's actually reality, and it goes back a long time. The New York Times has had very tight ownership the entire time that it's been in existence, and that's gone back a long ways. And where it came from, the people that created the New York Times, when they broke off from their old news ventures and created the New York Times, that record exists too. And so it's similar for all of these things that we're considering, right? They're not just out of a vacuum. They didn't pop up since like 9/11. These are very large multinational news companies that have been in the United States for a long time. Okay, well, if they're the enemy of the people right now, do you think that that's just some kind of fluke that just popped up since 9/11 because they just like, ate too much tofu or something? Like, what do you think is going on? Obviously, if they are the enemy of the American people, it's been that way for a long fucking time, right? Well, these motherfucking news agencies have been around since World War I and World War II. So what does that mean? What is the logical extension there, right? Because they sure as fuck were not against sending you to World War I and World War II. But if you're standing there championing those world wars and you think that it's some kind of, you did some kind of favor to yourself in the United States, then you have a contradiction there, right? And so it's something worth looking into. I know that it's uncomfortable, but the future is not a future of shoving things under the rug. And if you do, you're going to get left behind, because that's where we're going. An important point, I think, right? Oh, this is an interesting question. So Gary says, depends on what you mean by enemy. Is the farmer the enemy of his livestock? It's actually a great question. Great question, right? It depends. Now, how you answer that assumes some things that aren't true, right? So you assume that the relationship between, number one, you assume that the relationship between people is to be the nature of livestock, right? And that would assume the might is right model, right? That's how you would make that distinction. If the people are the cattle and if their rulers are the farmers, if they're the shepherds, then you would have to assume a basis that is what's right. So that's where you have to first get, which is not a publicly accepted concept. You know, it's not in fact, it's a concept that to discuss is further away from pretty much any interest that would be among the general public of most nations, right? Most people, majority of the world, and humanity. Does that kind of do we need to go deeper into that? Yeah, what you need is the term free press is such a loaded statement because you don't have a free press. What the American public, everything comes back to economics. Everything comes back to economics, and by economics I don't mean that it doesn't come back to like I want strawberry ice cream instead of chocolate ice cream economics. It comes back to I don't want to eat poison economics, but I don't have a choice because there's somebody holding a gun to my head telling me that I have to eat poison. You get what I'm saying? We don't want to be free and to complete this world. You're gonna have to fucking get rid of money. There's just no way. There's no way around it. Now, obviously, money is in Deuteronomy, and that much is true. But it doesn't really discuss the. It's not really brought up the surprises in there that like you don't necessarily have a solid, clean explanation of how you get. Because I'm assuming that a lot of the people in here are talking about. A lot of the people in here are looking at it from an Abrahamic, foundational perspective, like an analysis, right? Well, you don't have a really clear and well talked about bridge from Deuteronomy into they're going to throw their silver and gold in the street on the day of judgment, right? So if you accept that, like, well, because it's in Deuteronomy, because money as a technology is in Deuteronomy, that means it's just and right, and that's the way it should go. And because there's like mention of slaves and things like that in the Bible, then that means that that's the way it's supposed to be, is like property, money, slaves. Then you have like Judgment Day. You have silver and gold thrown into the streets, and people's heads hung in shame, right? Well, there's that is a threshold there, and the threshold isn't exactly described. The catharsis is described, right? But there is a you have to have a you don't have to have anything. It pulls a hunger for understanding the bridge between those things. Oh, okay, we got a Jorgensen in here asking about thoughts on DNA testing companies being bought up and the possibility of DNA being somehow used through COVID tests. Yeah, so I've actually discussed this before. I don't recognize your name from early streams, so I'll go over this again. So the thing that you have to understand about DNA, I guess we're now going into a DNA. We're now going into a DNA block here. So the first thing that you should understand is like the history of eugenics, right? And eugenics, I'm using as a broad term. I'm not going to get into like the very specific semantics of like how you define it, right? But of human beings altering DNA, right, or influencing DNA purposefully in some way, right? Either by, and this can either be by artificial selection, this can be by direct manipulation of genes, this could be um, dysgenic, eugenic, whatever, right? But I'm gonna put all that under eugenics, right? So the first thing that you have to understand is that the history of eugenics begins with it really starts with Darwin, right? I'm talking about like the like in the industrial field we have Mendel, Darwin, we have Sir Galton, and then through Sir Galton you get the really like the manifestation of the first eugenic programs in the United States, which then get carried over to Germany and into Europe. So they kind of like start in Europe, bounce to the United States, go through incubation in the United States, then get shot back over to Europe. It's very confusing to people in the traditional historical narrative until they understand that the motherfucking Arab Rav is in control of this, and that's the only way that it really makes sense, right? Because if you're in the model of like, you know, oh, there's Nazis and then there's like the Jews and like, you know, the eugenics, and the Nazis did eugenics and they're in Germany, and you know, but America's good. They fought the Nazis, but America did eugenics. You know, like you get into some some like silly conundrums there that don't make a lot of sense. Well, it makes a lot more sense when you realize that fucking people are not in control here. Okay, evil runs this fucking world, has for a while, and it was doing it during eugenics, and and that is why these little labels, these little name tags. This is the entire point of it, right? Is to make it so that you can't analyze the identity of things. All people, abstract concepts, everything are defined by their identity, and the identity is defined by and the identity, another word for that is image, and the image is defined entirely by contrast relation to something else, right? And if you don't have anything else to contrast it to, then there is no identity. It's necessary to have contrast to propagate identity in conception. And so I don't want to get. I don't want to fucking. I'm gonna race ahead here, and I don't want to do it. So the eugenics begins. That's when you start to get all kinds of, you know, you get Planned Parenthood, you get all these you know, social hybrid government institutions that are working on eugenics, sterilization, things like that in the United States. We're talking about like in the early 20th century. You get like the really interesting stuff is the crossover. There's basically like the same approximate group of Jews doing eugenics and all, you know, up until the modernity where you have like social engineering through destabilization in a major public way like BLM and Antifa and shit like that. Well, back in the day, like in early Planned Parenthood, for instance, everybody's familiar with Margaret Sanger, right? Well, you know, Sanger's cohort in developing Planned Parenthood is Fania Mendel, and that is the her husband was Roeder. Roeder is like a communist guerrilla helping Pancho Villa, you know. So this is like this is kind of like the MO and like a repeated pattern through pretty much the entire history of the United States and before that. But in terms of Americans understanding, like, you know, this isn't something that's new. So you get eugenics in the United States. You get it going back over into Germany, is particularly through multinational corporations, and that's where you start to get crossover between the United States and like what became ended up becoming Nazi Germany, where you start to get eugenics in Germany, right? Yeah, obviously, system is talking about Bill Gates, so the Gates family, obviously Gates family involved in IBM and eugenics, and developing like the census system going over to 1939 in Germany and Poland, of inventorying the Jews to try to initially get them sent to Palestine, which didn't work, and so then they had to do some other things. But the once we get through World War II, which was kind of like our that was like our how would you describe it? World War II was like the okay, we got to have a little reorganization of the seats here to make sure that people understand like which way the wind blows, right? That's kind of like what World War II is. Each World War is kind of, World War One is actually different. World War One was like knocking out a peg. World War II is like, oh, that peg's not over. We're gonna make sure everybody knows which way the wind blows here. So after World War II, that's when you start to get you get a major consolidation of technology, science, developments in science, fancy science, all that shit. You get major developments in that stuff after World War II. In the 1960s, you get Robert Guthrie. Robert Guthrie develops the PKU test. The PKU test is testing for phyllocytoma. Phyllocytoma? Is that what it is? PKU? It's a very long word. It is a metabolic disorder that's extremely rare. It's really only about 1 in 20,000 in like Caucasoid populations. It's extremely rare. Anyway, because of his personal concern for someone that he knows, trying to develop a test for it with paper, it ends up getting bought up through and produced by Miles Laboratory. Miles Laboratory is a subsidiary of Bayer. Bayer is the that'd be like IG Farben, that's like Germany. They make Zyklon B for the gas, right? The gas, wooden doors, right? So IG Farben, Bayer, Miles Laboratory builds the PKU test paper, and then it gradually rolls out since the 60s to become 100%. So every hospital pretty much by the 90s, every single hospital is doing newborn screening with the background excuse that PKU, is such a huge deal, so it occurs in 1/20,000th of the standard population. In some cases, even more than that in certain racial compositions. And so the extremely rare, also should be noted, has no fucking treatment other than just don't feed them the stuff that kills them, right? Because it's metabolic. You have to have an extremely restricted diet, right? But there is no cure or anything like that, right? So it seems kind of overboard logically to take something that has no cure and has an extremely low prevalence in the population, and then have every single motherfucker be getting their baby's heel prick and blood stolen. As soon as you get the Bayer, rolling out the PKU test, which they're interested in, is obviously only because this is children's blood on a piece of paper that then we can retain. And so Bayer's prerogative was to charge the government for it, overcharge the government to fund it, in order to fund it, their actual program, which is to build giant DNA databases. And then they expanded out all over the entire world into like practically every first world nation, even though it began in the United States. By the 90s and 2000s, you start to get people realizing what is going on with PKU, and then you have some very large lawsuits. And Guthrie had issues very early on when he discovered how much Bayer was overcharging the government, because his entire interest in it, it's just like, he's just a naive dreamer, And so he wanted to make a PKU test to help a specific person and make it cheap and available. And then, couldn't produce it because of economic scale. So his Bayer do it. The Bayer just takes the whole motherfucker over, and they roll it out everywhere, and they overcharge for it. So he's like dismayed, and pretty much like Guthrie was just like, oh fuck, what do I do here? And they rolled it out everywhere. It became universal, and then they started their World DNA Collection database, which has been ongoing since the 60s and continues until now. And if you had a child in a hospital, and they're very adamant about getting that blood sample, and it's because that's a prerogative of world government through Bayer. And those are the people that made Zyklon B the herbicide, or insecticide rather. The databases get started. They get pushed and promoted by organizations like the APA, the ACMG, et cetera, et cetera. Now, one thing to note is that all the people that are involved in the APA is about 90, I don't know what number of thousands of percent overrepresentation is, but it's all Jews. Obviously Jews at the APA. It's obviously Jews in the ACMG. And then what happens, they inform and lobby the law through Congress, which, don't know their asses from holes in the ground. And they are, it's like taking candy from a baby, right? Like these people running the government are idiots. They have no idea what is going on, and they couldn't care if they did, right? Because they're all bribed, dishonorable people that don't care anything about anything except for worldly material things, and so they're very easy to bribe, and they covet everything. And so the Congress passes laws to spread this out everywhere, and then they allow the recommendations of the ACMG and the APA and shit to transfer and sell the DNA samples of your newborn baby screenings in hospitals to private DNA banks that are non-governmental. And the way that they do that is they have a very broad and non-specific, non-overseen standard of this is anonymized data, meaning that it doesn't have your surname on it or whatever. It has everything else. It has your race. It has race of mother and father. It has location, all these things, right? So it has everything you need for a DNA database that is global. It just doesn't have a name. Well, the name doesn't really matter that much. It's about the least important thing for building a global DNA database. But, people are so dumb, you can just say it's anonymized, and then they're like, wait, my name's not on it? Okay, I'm good. As if that fucking matters one iota. The databases are they're called DNA banks. The states typically, a majority of states, as far as I'm aware, in the United States, a vast majority have a minimum, there's some states that have restrictions on how long the test can be held, but no restriction on transferring for after processing, right? So they do their little bullshit PKU test that nobody really cares about and doesn't matter. And then they do what's actually the whole fucking thing is for, and they transfer it to a DNA bank. And so states have, laws in place where the samples are retained for, I think the minimum, the fastest time that they can kick them out for states that were freaked out about it is 5 years. So the DNA banks have 5 years to go and acquire and pick up those DNA samples and put them in an inventory. Most states have 20 years or indefinite, or a vast majority of them, your large population states. They're like, we're not getting any conspiracy theory about DNA. Even though even though there's multiple multi-million-dollar lawsuits with citizens coming together and figuring out that their children's DNA was sold for under the table without their knowledge, without any kind of in situations that were illegal, and then they won lawsuits, and they're massive multi-million-dollar lawsuits, even though all that shit happened. the states are still like, no, there, there's no problem here. Okay, we want to test to see if you have a 1 in 20,000 chance of getting PKU. And so this is kind of the background story on how the world government already got your fucking DNA. Now, the you know, DNA maps can be drawn off if you have a large enough sample set, and they certainly have a large enough sample set by now. The additionally to that, in follow up, right? The COVID-19 we'll get to. We're gonna wrap that because that's in modernity. Before that, we have to talk about some other things and establish them to really paint the picture here. So besides PKU testing, in order to get people's DNA and build a worldwide DNA database, you also have like 23andMe, which is a Wojcicki, like YouTube. It's the woman who is the CEO of YouTube. I think it's like her sister or cousin or whatever it is with the same surname is the founder of 23andMe. You also have a bunch of, rich Jewish Zionist philanthropists doing DNA collection, like DNA collection programs that are disguised as like, hey, dumb fuck, you don't know anything about DNA. You want to give it to us, and then we'll draw you a picture of your genealogy, as if like that even fucking matters. Like, because surprise, you're from a long line of slaves. But they do it and they pull it off, and people are like, oh wow, my great grandma was named Maria. I'm sorry, that's harsh. Family's important. Place family first and respect your elders. It's more of just a tongue-in-cheek thing. So the fucking these DNA programs have been so extreme. There are multiple. There's a particularly high profile one. I think it's in Philadelphia. So I believe it might be somewhere else. If you Google like unmarked vans setting up in like city parks and like paying people cash to collect DNA, this is stuff that's been going on in the United States for the past decades. So there are private organizations that do DNA research. What they really are like contractors that go out and pay difficult to access populations to police up their DNA. So they, like Philadelphia, I think, is one of the places where these people got popped for this, and there were people like taking cell phone pictures and stuff. And it's basically like it's just a bunch of people in like unmarked vans setting up tables in like city parks and shit for mostly like urbanized populations. We're talking like Black Americans, things like that. People that may not have, as consistent contact with the health system, with the like health or lack of health system that is our medical system, which is a fucking scam, sure, and you should run away from it as fast as possible and keep them away from your children at all costs, including lethal force. The freaking these unmarked vans are setting up in city parks, paying people cash to give them their DNA samples. You have, aside from that, you have other things that like Russia recently went through a national ban because the United States government, or what's called as the United States government, it's not really the United States government. It's people wearing U.S. flags, like on their passports and shit, under U.S. government contract, setting up shop in Eastern Europe outside of Russia to collect DNA on Eastern Europeans. And so Russia had to put a moratorium on, like a legal moratorium nationally on making sure that things that DNA samples in whatever way that blood and tissue samples are taken for medical purposes or whatever are not then sold afterwards, because they were buying them from Russia and from like Ukraine and shit like that. They were buying them secondhand after they get used for medical purposes. Anything that can at all be used for serology testing. Serology would be any kind of like a fluid or tissue sample. for analysis. That's like a general name for that is serology. And so Russia was putting a lockdown on that, and they're doing it under the perspective of like national security threat. Now, this was a while ago. This was a few years ago, and so the Russia was all over this already, right? Like people are just now in the United States barely starting to like get a little whiff of like, man, maybe like I shouldn't do exactly what perfect fucking strangers say to me, that people have never, not only have I never met them, I'm never going to meet them. I'm just gonna like watch a fucking Facebook ad about how I should go give blood samples and shit. Maybe I shouldn't do that, you know? Like, I don't know why it would take you any convincing or thought at all, but I guess it's kind of the depth to which we sunk as creatures here. So don't do that. Don't give away your blood is yours. It's pretty important. You should fucking hold on to it. You don't want to just like, give it to some weirdo. But Russia was all over this shit way before. We're not even there yet here. We're barely there. We're barely touching the surface of being there here. Russia's already like, whoop, nope. And they cut that shit off. Not shilling for Russia. They're fucking under world government too. Anyway, that's the situation with Russia. Now, the really interesting thing is that if you look up the term ethnic bioweapons, you get early discussion in science fiction by like Robert Heinlein, things like that. He's like the author of Starship Troopers and Moon Mistress book and shit like that, right? That would be like the science fiction realm, where you start to see the term ethnic bioweapons beginning to be a thing that's talked about is in Israel. So Israel, of course, is like the people that are really interested in ethnic bioweapons. That's for like numerous reasons. The Jews in Israel have taken it upon themselves to like go out of their way to identify Amalek, even though they continuously pick out the wrong fucking Amalek. But it's because they're allowing the Erev Rav to lead them. The Erev Rav is happy to show you as many fucking Amaleks as you want to see. You'll ask who's Amalek now, and they'll hold up a fucking mirror to you if you let them. So Israel is one of the biggest like proponents of the like discussing ethnic bioweapons a lot. You get U.S. senators talking about the threat of ethnic bioweapons, particularly Jewish U.S. senators, in as early as the 80s. In the 1980s, they were talking about this stuff. So like there's a Senator Cohen who is on record bringing up the threat of ethnic bioweapons in the 80s. And it's pretty much like, he was like laughed at. Now the United States is basically like under, the United States population is basically like placating to, basically like servicing what they think are the Jews. So they didn't want to like go out of their way to laugh at Senator Cohen because he's a Jew. So they were like, oh, that's super weird. Let's not talk about that. Coca-Cola, But or whatever it was in the 80s, I don't know what, Pepsi Cola. But they didn't want to talk about Senator Cohen, like fucking screaming and wailing about ethnic bioweapons, like as if that's just a regular everyday thing that, no, we can't do that. Moving on to insurance reform or whatever. Kind of an unusual topic, should have been a big deal. It wasn't. They pushed under the rug. Right? Yeah, Coke Zero. Or I think they had like clear Pepsi back in the 80s, didn't they? Or was that the 90s? I can't remember. They had a like a clear fucking Pepsi. I think it was like the predecessor to Zima. You new boys don't know nothing about Zima. People getting Zima with putting fucking Jolly Ranchers in it and shit. Yeah, Pepsi Crystal. Yeah, Pepsi Crystal. Man, that stuff's trash. Another interesting thing to note. So I've already talked about it. So if you didn't know this, like the entire invention of like carbonated drinks and shit, that all comes out of Germany. That's German. Just like your bread, your sausage, most of your fancy meat preparations, like especially a lot of things that people consider to be Italian, actually, and meat actually originate in Germany. Same thing with beer. Beer is like German origin. Your carbonated drinks. Germany has a lot of fruit and carbonated drinks. The reason why is because they did a lot of preservation and pickling and fermentation. And fermentation, like certain processes will off-gas carbon dioxide, and they can carbonate drinks. And they're kind of magicians of that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, cartouche. Yeah. Yep. So the just a little interesting anecdotal note to make you feel sorry about destroying that fucking country and killing all those people. If you have a conscience. Let's see. So anyway, so Cohen ranting and wailing about the ethnic bioweapons, right? Then you get up into that, right? Like, so COVID-19, right? And this is the original question. I didn't want to answer the COVID-19 thing with DNA without giving you the whole fucking like, oh shit, we're really fucked background story there. So COVID-19, it's not something that's new. It's something that obviously was man-made, obviously released by International Erevav through the fucking Wuhan laboratory, purportedly. It doesn't have to be in Wuhan. It's kind of a straw man argument, like who gives a fuck where it got released. It's in China because they need to blame it on China. CDC pulls out employees out of Wuhan in particular to, over the 6 months up to 2 months prior to the first traces of COVID in Wuhan province. You get a lot of people associated with the facilities involved in Dark Winter having representation at Wuhan, the Wuhan laboratories, specifically the ones where COVID gets released. The DNA aspect of it comes in through the CDC response. So before any of this started, right, there's a couple things to note. One thing would be like the involvement of Google subsidiaries in setting up the initial handling of the public response to COVID. And they what they're doing is an executive administration, private / government, fascist crossover to pull fucking DNA. And so the CDC got set up to handle this stuff months and months and months and months and months, way before COVID reached the United States. They were setting up for multi-tier serology prevalence surveillance programs in the United States and developed the programs. You know how big the CDC is and how large of a bureaucracy it is. Things can move kind of slow. It takes a while for the transmission fluid to work its way through that system. So they had to start like months and months prior setting up the groundwork for their nationwide seroprevalence serology testing, which, by the way, only tests for antibody reaction to the threat of COVID-19 and isn't even really that effective. It can have false positives. It really doesn't do shit. The only thing, ironically, that serology seroprevalence programs from the CDC do in a 100% and unfailed way is get your motherfucking blood samples and analyze them and database them and send them somewhere that you don't fucking know, because there's no fucking public oversight. The CDC doesn't say it, and not a single one of your bullshit politicians gives a fuck about you or your country, and they're all bribed, and they need to get the fuck out of here because they gave it all away. And that, my friend, is the story of how you got sold down the river. Now that was kind of a divergent topic there that we went into based off of a viewer's question. What else you got here? Somebody's other viruses. Let's see what you got. Otis. Yeah, so okay, so we're talking about other viruses here. So we have a bunch of viruses that are associated with the labs, with the fucking government labs that are associated with development of COVID, right? You have Ebola, you have HIV-2, you have you also have like your Black Death is also that would be most of the Black Death stuff is through Colorado. Which is like the military arm of the government program that would be in Maryland, the facility, the main facility. Yeah, Jorgensen is asking about. Yeah, Colorado Springs is very scary. Pueblo is scary. Colorado Springs is scary. There's a lot of bubonic plague that is like incidentally come up in Colorado. Abdullah, I'm not sure. He's probably got better shit to do, hopefully. If you guys didn't know this, the entire point of the streams is to scare the shit out of you to the point where you fucking get off the internet and start living your life. When I do that, it's successful. The more people that leave these fucking streams, the better job I'm doing. Knights of Malta. Well, I don't really know a whole lot. I mean, I know there's a bunch of jibber jabber about Knights of Malta. I know that Eric Prince has, like he's got contract with China for the Silk Road and shit like that. He's been a fucking Zionist shit disturber since day one. He's probably the goy that's gonna send somebody to fucking shoot me in the face sometime. I'm not doing a mag dome now. I got a nice airsoft little. I really like this classic. It's just like a classic little Mark 18 with I got a little Jew aim point mount on there. It's very nice. It's very good. Very well made carry handle. Carry handle side very intelligently designed, of course. Great. It's a great ABS BB ball airsoft rifle for nonviolent playtime. All right, yeah, another great question. So Kevin asked Dugan, what's your opinion on the current ammo shortage? What is your opinion on the current ammo shortage? Is it manufactured or is it just a result of COVID-19 BLM riot panic buying? It's both. Now, the one thing that I will say that concerns me a little bit is Palmetto. So Palmetto State Armory has concerned me a bit because they have taken pretty much the classic takeover model of industry. And if you didn't know this, Palmetto State Army is so big that they've actually like, the reason that Magpul is working with Palmetto on things like MP5 furniture and shit like that is because Palmetto's so fucking big and has so much money that they fucking offered to buy Magpul before. Magpul has turned it down, but you know, Palmetto is buying out, you know, like base production parts like bulk carrier groups and shit like that, at the manufacturing level all over the United States. And so what you should, you know, the only thing, not, this doesn't mean anything, right? It doesn't mean anything necessarily. And I don't know the guys at Palmetto State Army. I'd be happy to talk to them if they wanted to. I'm sure they fucking don't. The Palmetto State Armory, they're buying a lot of shit. It's a very suspicious model. It's a fucking swallow everything up model, and they're Zionists, like pretty much for sure. Palmetto State Army is Zionist, and so it very well could be that they're buying everything up to take the backdoor model to nuke everything, you know. And it's the same thing. It's the same model as the NRA. The way that they did it with the NRA, now NRA is retarded. First of all, it's fucking placating to FUDs. Like, you guys are fucking idiots for doing the NRA model. And I know that people will watch this and be like, "Oh, it's so crude." Like, you know, I mean, you have a fucking constitution. You guys didn't enforce it. And that's why we're here. The NRA is like, what's the point of the NRA? Like, is your concept of the NRA is like, look, we have the Constitution, and in the Constitution it talks about, you know, how we have a Declaration of Independence and how you have the right to go up against King George, you know, because of tyranny, right? And then it says the reasons why, right? And then some of those things are happening now. So I think the best solution is to pay a bunch of people a bunch of money that then they can embezzle and fucking lose, and then fucking like gatekeep the identity of the Second Amendment so that we don't have to fucking do anything about it. And then what do? They fucked it all up. You know how they fucked it up? Because the NRA is retards. And I told those motherfuckers in the fucking board personally, told as many fucking board members of the NRA as I could fucking get a hold of while I was doing Carnicon, trying to fucking warn them. The NRA is so fucking stupid that they were writing articles about the Council on Foreign Relations being anti-gun, and how they were basically verging on, they had authors, editorial authors writing articles in the NRA, releasing to their members online on their website, talking borderline conspiratorial about how the CFR was like a, you know, international pseudo government entity, you know, trying to subvert the United States Constitution, which is 100% right, but they didn't say it as direct as I'm saying it. They pussyfooted around it because they're pussies. And then on top of that, the dumb motherfuckers had people like fucking James Gilmore III, or whatever the fuck his name is, and like multiple fucking board members on the NRA that concurrently, at the time of the fucking articles they're writing, were serving on the board of the CFR. I mean, I don't know how fucking dumb you guys are, but it's pretty incredible, you know? Like, I mean, and I fucking told them about it, and they didn't even get, the people I told about it are not corrupt. They're people that are serving on the board that are normal people, and they're not, you know, there's good, really good people that are involved in the NRA. You're all retarded, you know? I mean, I hate to tell you that, but it's just the truth. I mean, and that shouldn't be any kind of dispute, because right now the NRA is basically going bye-bye because they're so fucking corrupt in their management that they couldn't even understand what was going on, and they got a bunch of shithead subversives in there, and they fucking moved around fast money, and they set up a situation that then they could fucking dump on them with to fucking pin them up. And then now they're in a giant lawsuit. That's not a mistake, right? What the NRA is going through right now, it's not a mistake. That's a fucking tactical, subversive MO that is very old. And people in the NRA have no idea like what game you're playing. Some of those motherfuckers probably fucking raped children or something for all I know, and they have video of it, and that's why they're like, oh, don't stop the subversives. They got fucking pictures of me raping children. That's probably how far they went, you know, because they're gonna fucking, if they're gonna come after you, they're gonna go fucking hardcore, and if you've got any kind of vices, they're gonna fucking exploit them. They're gonna be sending fucking homeless people to steal your trash and shit. Looking through your fucking wife's tampons or whatever. They're gonna be fucking pulling DNA samples off that shit, trying to build a fucking network profile of you. All the board members, anybody that has any influence in the NRA. Probably for 2 decades they were doing that shit. There's no rules here, guys. I mean, it's just, the only rule is like win. And, you know, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't play by any rules. You should be ethical, highly ethical, but you need to like dump your vices to be safe. I mean, that's the only way. I just channel all my vices into Grizzly Wintergreen tobacco. That makes it pretty simple. You know, it's like I talk to somebody and I'm like, look, I know my breath smells like shit, literal pig shit, but you know, that's an easy thing to, you know, I can be like, yeah, I know, I'm weak, I chew tobacco, I got it. Let's move on. But the NRA, anyway, and when I'm talking about when I'm dumping on the NRA here, it's kind of like a lamenting thing. Not because I think the idea of the NRA is stupid in the first place, but I know that the people involved, you know, there's a lot of good people involved in the NRA that had the best intentions. It's just they're too brainwashed into placating to the world government system, and it's like they can't understand that this is like you don't have anything to placate to, man. You don't have anything to negotiate. Like, this was your fucking country and you just gave it away. You know, there's no like oh, well, they're gonna take it away hard, so we should like let them take it away less hard. Like, no, they're not supposed to. Nobody's supposed to take away shit. You just fucking let them take it. Let them take everything. There's no reason. You don't need to negotiate. You don't need to like get somebody in there that can play hardball or whatever. It was your fucking country and they stole it from you and destroyed it. You know? I mean, that's the reality, right? And that's the entire story of the NRA. And as soon as they compromise the leadership of the NRA financially, it becomes, now it's just like a scarecrow gatekeeper. You know, so they stand up there and make the loudest noise with the most money, funnel your money into it. And then what do? They move out of the way when the biggest bands come through. They move out of the way for fucking 1986 band. You know? They fucking roll over for a fucking assault weapon band and don't push hard enough. They fucking roll over for fucking bump stock band. They fucking roll over for everything. And they write a little story about how they're not rolling over. They're fucking rolling over every time. Because they shouldn't be fucking staying there in the first place. You're basically paying a guard that's a sloppy drunk and like sleeps on shift. That's what you're doing when you placate to the NRA. Sold out for fucking background checks. You have sold out for fucking 1960. NRA fucking promoted 1968 GCA. Promoted the shit. They put in like, you know, there is a national code when you're traveling interstate to like, if you're not you know, conducting leisurely activity, if you're like traveling through a state, you don't have to placate to state gun laws by congressional law, by GCA 1968. The NRA like played hardball to get that put in there, you know what I mean? Because they're like, well, we're gonna get fucked in the ass, but at least this way they have to wear a rubber, you know? And the you know what? It was fake the entire time. Because guess what? Not a single fucking state follows it or knows about it. And if you get fucking pulled over on the highway and try to say that shit and the cop thinks that you're a threat, he's gonna fucking shoot you in the head. You know? I mean, fuck. It's just ridiculous, you know? I'm sorry, I'm getting annoying here, I know. I'm passionate about firearms, okay? It's a tool of freedom. Let's move on to something a little more positive, right? I apologize for my communication, not for the you know, I have bad habits, okay? I curse and I'm crude and I'm trying to speak from my heart. It's just how it comes out. It's my default from my childhood. Yeah, I think I would guess that the election is probably which is very unfortunate because if it goes really quick, that could mean that you have the drop in winter. You don't want the drop in winter. I'm talking about like the national everything. Now this brings us to another point. So somebody asked, do you think unrest with guns in the street will I'm assuming he's talking about combat, like low intensity conflict erupting. I think that there is a high probability of that being associated with November election. The other facet of that is organic resistance. So we are getting to the point where enough people are figuring out what's going on, where you could get people that are legitimate, regular people that are not tied up in any kind of scheme or money system or anything. They're just like, oh, we're Jesse James now, and they're gonna like start shooting people. That could easily fucking come up because honestly, who could you blame? Because they basically, the United States has been watching a model since World War One of like we just kill everybody that we don't agree with anyway. We don't talk about it, we don't even shoot them with the biggest, the most tactically advantaged way that we can. So why the fuck would it be any surprise at all when that model is replicated by everything from the law enforcement model, the fucking legal system, the fucking like everything? Should be no surprise at all when people start organically fighting what they see as wrong and with violence. And it should be no fucking surprise whatsoever. Now, this week, whether it's a synthesis or not, Britain has announced that it is going through an economic recession. Now, that's kind of a big deal because Rothschild House old home is Britain, okay? And it's been that way since the fall of the Holy Roman Empire. So it's kind of a big deal. They diversified into the United States. We're talking about since like the 1500s. They diversified in the United States, 1492, Columbus, Ocean Blue. They diversified in the United States, pretty heavily in the 1500s through both the Spanish arm and the British arm. And then they retained the base power monetary structure in Europe, in London, until they built Israel. And then they diversified into Israel. And so now they're straddled between all of them, between all those places. And there's some interesting comments. I'm stopping to read them. And so the we got a lot of questions here. Okay, so let's finish up what we're talking about, and then we'll answer some of these questions. So the on the current timeline, it does appear so. Fuck. I gotta turn on my phone screen. Nope, I'm already all the way down. I'm gonna have to get a cord. I'm gonna die here. Power. My battery sucks. Okay. So, in terms of the November election, like they've got to get Trump back in, 100%. All like the whole game is make it look like everybody's against Trump, so that all of the like any kind of patriotic ideology that is for America identifies it with Trump. And so that's why the MSM and the institutions and everybody are making it look like like world government is gunning for Trump. They're not. He's world government. It's the entire fucking trick. They want anybody at all that they put up there to lose except for Trump. Okay, that is the entire fucking game here, and they've got to get Trump winning. And after you get that, they need him because of the transition. They basically transitioned the United States into a monarchy model through the executive branch with multiple presidents, and then it's just really ramped up with Trump, and they're getting everything in place. You're definitely going to get more viruses. You're going to get serious fucking viruses that are going to be lethal. COVID-19 is just the setup, the initial setup. They're fucking inventorying everything and crossing all their T's and dotting their I's. You're going to get some deadly shit coming. They've got the model pretty well consolidated under Trump, and so now all they have to do is do the transition period under the executive administration, which they've pretty much turned the executive administration into the entire crossover function of the United States of what used to be the old United States, but it's now under executive independent agencies and all of their conglomerate like auxiliary functions, FFRDCs, and then along with like private industry. They just all cross over. They're just fake name tags just to fucking keep you guessing and keep you from figuring out what's going on. They don't care what you call them. They don't care if you call them the 1%. They don't care if you call them the deep state. They don't care if you call them commies. They don't care if you call them socialists or progressives. They don't care. It doesn't matter because none of those fucking things are them. And they all underplay the threat and the power of what is really going on here. And if America does not wake up and understand this, you guys, you're not going to get through this unscathed. You're not going to go through this like we're just going to skip over it like we're hopping over a fucking pond lily or something and just jumping on the other side in a flower bed. Like that's not going to happen. We're going to get gut checked no matter what. And you have basically like a fucking serving line of bad shit that is coming this way, and it can all be moved around like chess pieces on a chessboard. And they can attack with a rook or bishop or queen or fucking knight. It doesn't matter. And they're responding and reading everything that you do through social media, and they have a full measure of the public pulse. And that's where you're going. And it's going to get pretty epic seeing basically the game is like it's like somebody like trying to convince somebody like, let me choke you to death, and they're like, no, I don't know, and they're like, no, just let it happen, and they're basically just like waiting to see how accepting you're going to be. They want the ideal situation for them is to get you to accept and then reinstitute your governmental conception with world government as a replacement for the old nation state model, because the day of the nation state is over. Any way that you cut it, there's no more nation state. We are in the fucking swan song of the nation state. It'll probably be a long process, but it's going away 100%. We're gonna have to get. Are we still going here? I have to go get a phone cord if we're still going. I gotta charge this thing. I gotta get an umbilical cord. What do you guys think? Operation Umbilical. I like it. That's right. We're doing an Operation Umbilical. We're getting our fucking lifeline here. When you drive a car, you're actually producing independent power. Ironically, other than all the money that flew around the world to make your car and the little communist deals that got paid in Japan or Mexico or whatever, but in terms of your 12 volts that you're using to charge your phone, you're actually just, you're doing a good job there.